All right, so we're not going to read the article. I'm just going to give you
that one. Okay.
the sense of it.
Okay.
So JJ sent it, and it's the suspension paradox. And you and I have talked about this before. Way back in the beginning, you may remember when I tell you. And what it is say like
I have trouble remembering what I was doing yesterday.
Okay, well, I'm going to give you the example here. And oh my God, this is tiny. Okay, so imagine yourself in this situation.
Magnifying glass.
Right. You are the parliamentarian for an organization. A member moves to suspend a rule of order, and the vote to suspend the rule of order.
Do you have a Rob Serling voice?
No. No, I don't.
Sorry.
You're not going to be able to concentrate if you keep doing that.
I don't have a can of orange juice to stare at. Anyway.
The vote, Mr. Parliamentarian, is 16 in favor, 10 against.
This is to suspend the rules?
Yes.
Okay.
And no abstentions. The chair does not vote.
16 out of 26, huh?
No. 16 against 10. Yes, yes.
16 out of 26, yeah.
Richard, if you don't know what page you're on, I can't help you. Oh, okay.
Richard, look on Caryn's Facebook page. Then you're in the right place.
It's on 3 pages though.
Oh, okay.
It's on 3 separate pages. All right.
Okay, so 16 out of 26.
16 out of 26.
Which is not 2/3.
Right. So the chairman turns to you and asks if the vote was sufficient to suspend the rule.
No.
And your answer would be no. Because any adopted rule relating to parliamentary procedure requires at least 2/3.
Right. And in the case of 26, that would be 18.
Right. So 10 people voted against it. So 20 people would have had to vote to suspend the rule in most cases.
20?
It has to be 2/3.
2/3 of 26 is 18. Because 2/3 of 27 is 18.
Richard, you always told me it wasn't 2/3.
Right.
Okay. Let's just deal with that. Well, there was the chair too.
But we didn't vote.
But it doesn't matter. It still
doesn't count.
Oh yeah, that's correct. But anyway, you're going down a rabbit trail. The enterprising member, however,
Captain Kirk,
really wants to get around this rule. He decides to move that the assembly adopt a special rule of order which would permit him to do what he wants to do. He did not give previous notice that he was going to do this. He didn't even know that he was going to do this until the motion to suspend was lost. The vote was taken again.
Okay, so this is not on the agenda then either. Okay.
Right. The vote was taken again, and 16 were in favor, 10 against, with the chair not voting.
Still fails. Wait
a minute. The special rule, the one that permits the member to do what he could not do without suspending the rule in Roberts, could not possibly have been adopted without a 2/3 vote, right?
Because you had to suspend the rules to consider the motion in the first place.
It assumes that
you have to. It's not on the agenda.
Yeah, but that isn't even part of this. He gets to make the motion. Forget about you're reading way too much into this.
No, in order to make the motion to do that rule, he has to suspend the rules first to put it on to get.
He got to make the motion. So let's.
Okay.
We're at the point he made the motion, and nobody raised a point of order, so it's too late.
So the chair was asleep at the switch. No wonder he didn't vote.
Whatever. He got to make the motion.
Yes.
To create a new special rule of order.
Yes.
To do what he wants to do.
Yes.
The vote was 16 to 10 again.
Okay.
Did his motion pass?
That one did pass because it's a majority. It should have been ruled out of order, but it passed.
A majority of
the people voting.
Of the people voting?
Yes. Because it was 16 out of 26 is a majority.
Okay. All right. It's a little bit more complicated than that because he didn't give previous notice. So can you adopt a special rule?
So that goes, okay, without previous notice, that makes it 2/3. Shouldn't it?
No. This is what is weird here. Okay. So the question was, could not possibly have been adopted without a 2/3 vote, right? And then the answer is maybe. Before you answer that one, you need one more piece. The organization has a total membership of 30. That does make a difference. Roberts states that a rule, even a special rule of order, can be adopted by a majority of the entire membership if no previous notice is given. The total membership is 30, and a majority of the total members is 16. The rule is adopted.
But they didn't list that in the first place.
They don't list what?
The fact that there were 30 members.
Well, you'd have to know that before you could tell the chair whether that motion passed.
Right. So therefore, in the absence of that piece of information, which I should have conveyed at the beginning of the question, I'm calling the question shitty.
Well, but I'm just saying.
Lack of information, folks.
This isn't a test. This is just to show that in one situation with the exact same action, it requires 2/3. Mm-hmm. If he just goes about it a different way, it is a majority of the entire membership. And if your membership is sufficiently small and your attendance at the meeting is sufficiently high, that number is less than 2/3. Mm-hmm. So that is the suspension paradox.
There's an easy way to solve the problem.
What's that?
The chair should have ruled the initial motion out of order because you need to suspend the rules to consider in the first place. And they don't mention what the vote on that was. But if it was the other 16 to 10, it would have failed. Yeah.
They
By the way, TJ's talking smack about you.
Oh, he's always talking smack about me. So
yes, she will kick your ass.
So that I thought was really, because very early on when we started doing this, I'm like, wait, a majority of the entire membership? I go, that would be less than 2/3 in most of the cases we're on with the boards.
Right. And frankly, that's just...
That's weird, isn't it?
It is weird. And that's why this whole thing about notice of the entire membership versus notice versus non-notice of the board. Yeah, they got to clean that up.
I should go back and find the episode, because I remember saying it should be a majority of the entire membership or a 2/3 vote, whichever is greater.
That I wouldn't object to.
Because there's no notice given.
Yeah.
And there's got to be... to me, you shouldn't be able to get away with this dude in this scenario.
This is making an end run around the notice requirement just because you're a small group, which is ridiculous.
But he goes on to explain why this is, but I still don't agree. So it says here there are two basic principles that lead to this paradox. First is the principle of the protection of the minority, especially a minority of greater than 1/3.
Yeah.
And that's why 2/3 is needed to suspend the rules.
Which is what we normally go with.
Right.
Because normally the full membership of the body is a lot larger than this.
He says the second is the principle of majority rule. In cases where the majority of the members of an assembly want to do something that's not prohibited by bylaws or whatever, they can do it. And those two come into a weird
conflict.
And TJ is saying the motion did not have to be on the agenda if you're meeting at least quarterly.
It's JJ.
Yeah.
You said TJ.
Oh, all the J's. All the J's.
Okay, Richard Brown just said something. The majority of the entire membership is often less than 2/3 and easier to obtain in small groups such as boards.
Right.
That's
that's what I think is a problem.
Yeah, because as a rule of thumb, here's the ultimate question: which takes precedence over the other? The majority rule concept of the entire body, or the protection of the rights of the minority up to including the 1/3?
But it's not 1/3 of the membership. But to me, to avoid this, it should say whichever is greater. I said that way back a year.
I would argue protecting the rights of the minority take priority, but that's me.
Not just protecting the rights of the minority. You know me, what I always fall back on, and I know Roberts doesn't fall back on this, but I always do, is principles of equity. If you did not give previous notice, it's an ambush. Mm-hmm. And that's just the way I look at it, and that's why I think it should be whatever is greater. So it says, does this happen very often? And the answer depends on two characteristics of the organization, size and attendance.
Right.
It says an organization that has a large voting membership and has a low percentage of members attending will never experience this. Mm-hmm. But, we're on boards and committees and like shit like that. This could happen all the time.
The closest I ever saw this happen was when this was California, the state convention in 2009, which was a highly controversial convention because we had the entire assembly of delegates go into executive session to consider an issue. Never happened before. Hopefully, it's never happened since. But part of that came out of that executive session was the fact that we only had a nuclear option for the resolution versus a compromise. So we sat down, and three of us, myself, Aaron Starr, and the third person, we actually composed a bylaw on the fly, on the floor, to fix the problem. But we then proceeded to have it passed by a 2/3 to suspend the rules to get it to have it be considered, and then it passed by another 2/3 to amend the bylaws to include that. And we specifically made it so it was a 2/3, even though California's bylaws were a majority amendment, because we wanted to make sure that there was going to be no question about it.
Right.
And it passed more than 2/3. It passed like 90%. So it became a moot point, but we made sure that we covered all our bases.
Oh, that reminds me of another problem with the a current problem with the Colorado bylaws. Not with nothing the committee's creating. A problem we have right now.
What's that?
And I didn't think about this. Remember, we changed. I went along with it. Now I wish I didn't for many reasons. Being able to amend the bylaws is only every other year.
Yes.
Okay. But we also added in the emergency convention
Special
thing.
convention, yes.
Right. And in the emergency convention part, it talks about amending bylaws in case like state law or something changes.
Right. Which was the original intent.
But what if the special convention is in a year that you're not allowed to amend the bylaws?
Doesn't matter.
Well, there's a conflict in the bylaws.
No, there's not.
Yeah, there is.
No, because, well, you could, if you wanted to get technical on the actual wording, you could make that argument.
Well, I think that's...
But at the same time, the intent of the special convention rule was to allow for amendment of the constitutional bylaws in case of an emergency off cycle.
Well, it wasn't off... Right. Well, outside of a regular convention. But remember, those two changes were made at the same convention.
Right.
So the time we wrote that thing about the special convention, we were allowed to amend them every year anyway.
Right.
So it didn't even enter my mind.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, because the technical wording of the way the bylaws are currently constructed, you could argue, and I actually saw this too. Yeah. Where it could actually preclude it.
Right. And we'd be in a real jam.
But then you have to ask yourself the question: if one section doesn't explicitly say you can't, and the other one dictates that you can, which one takes priority? I would argue that the grant delegation of permission takes priority over the explicit delegation of permission takes priority over an implicit denial, which is not explicit.
I actually don't think that section gives I think it gives permission under what?
Specific prevails over general, which is right.
I think the specific is in these bylaws. No, I think it's in the amendment provision. I think that's the specific one.
I think it's in the special part, but that's just me.
Yeah, well, the reason this came to mind... Okay, listen, with both of you here, I want to know... Oh, I wish I had the language. I want to know your guys' opinion.
I'll find the language.
The one where they want the board to be able to suspend the bylaws.
Oh, no, we don't have that one.
Okay. All right. I wish I had the exact language.
I would not pollute my phone with such heresy.
This bylaws committee is proposing a bylaw that allows the board, if the bylaws are getting in their way, to suspend the bylaws. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that? Oh, man. I'm just waiting to hear that. I could tell you what I think about it. Well, he's still on the... Okay.
Yeah. And that's exactly my argument. But, no, let's put it to you. Here's the problem. Yeah, no, you cannot suspend the frickin' bylaws.
And you can't the board just because they... What?
But, as we have seen from attempts to fuck with the SOP in the past, One of those attempts specifically, this was in St. Louis. You weren't in the party at this point. This
Mm-hmm.
happened in 2010, but I know you're aware of it. They tried to amend the bylaws to remove the 7/8 requirement.
Oh, I know. That was, no, actually in 2008.
No, they tried it in 2010, too.
They tried it both years?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I know. It was the
again.
4-step thing. I know.
Yeah, it was to take out the 7/8, amend the SOP, put the 7/8 back on.
With a force field.
No, there was no force field.
The proposal had it was to add it. That was the argument was, let's fix it and then we'll close the door.
Right.
So, I know they can do it, but whether I would not advise it, of course.
Well, where I was going with this is that it is theoretically possible, not advisable, matter of fact, I think it's a stupid idea,
mm-hmm.
to make a motion to amend the bylaws to temporarily to remove a specific provision, do whatever the hell the business is that...
Oh, but that's at convention.
At convention, and then turn around and re-add it.
Oh, yeah, no, at convention, but this isn't talking about at convention. It's talking about at a board meeting.
Oh, that's different. No way.
They want the board.
No fucking way.
Yeah, outside of convention.
Yeah.
No, this was in 2008 and 2010.
Yeah, Denver and St. Louis, yeah.
And that's what prompted my 2018 close the back door thing.
And double padlock.
And the force field.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and double padlock like a storage area.
Yeah, that was good. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because theoretically you could do that, but at a convention.
Yeah, no, this isn't at a convention.
It's not a good idea.
But here's how it came up with where I thought there might be that conflict. This was what I would say to the board. You've got a provision in here to call an emergency convention. If there's some bylaw that is existentially preventing the party from fulfilling its purpose, call a fucking special convention and ask the delegates to change it.
Yeah, the detail on that is that the special convention, and we kind of extended this a little. We stretched this interpretation last time around because of the nomination issues. It's supposed to be there to keep the bylaws in conformance with state law,
but I don't mind
not just to make an amendment because something's in the way of getting something accomplished.
Well, but if it's in their language was it had to be something that the board thought was preventing the party from fulfilling its purpose.
You mean the proposal?
Yes.
Well, you know what? That's subjective out the ass.
Of course it is. That's why I think it needs to be left to the delegates. But if we have the ability to call a special convention, that's broadened a little bit, which I won't mind broadening that, then call a fucking special convention.
Right.
I'm going to give the board, as long as it doesn't violate member rights. But the bylaws are, member, you don't get to determine that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
And the fundamental thing of it is the board has the authority, is given the authority to basically ignore the bylaws at their whim. Why the hell do we have bylaws in the first place? That's what it comes down to.
I know. It's insane. But you want to know.
In other words, why even have the organization if you're not going to have any structure to it? Let's just have the chair be a dictator, dictate everything to all the affiliates, all the members, everything. Decide who gets nominated, who doesn't, who's on the board, and everything else. And to hell with everybody else. They do that, I guarantee you the party will die in about 10 seconds.
But let me tell you, I don't think that provision's going to pass.
It ain't going to pass.
I'm actually going to bring tomatoes.
Preferably rotten ones.
Yeah, to throw.
I'll bring the eggs.
Because that is, that's stinky.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm hoping like a bunch of really suspicious libertarians are there that are just going to freak the hell out.
Well, what you just heard me say is I'll stand up and I'll make that argument. I'll say, if you want it, the board can just ignore the bylaws at their whim. Why bother having it? Why bother having a party? Mm-hmm. We'll just make it a cult of personality, destroying the chair. And
worst comes to worst, you can strip.
I ain't going to do a Jimmy Weeks at the convention.
It will certainly throw everything into pandemonium.
I can do that without taking my clothes off. And believe me, with this,
let's
no.
Let's smuggle in a skunk.
Now, I've done some pretty stupid things in my life, and catching it.
And When the bylaws debate starts not going our way, we'll just let
Why
it.
don't you
We'll
just
just let them. They're a big basket of snakes.
no, you don't need to go that crazy. Just use the classic practical joke stink bomb.
See, Richard thought that was good.
Just a classic practical joke stink bomb.
Can you imagine though at a national convention if someone let a skunk loose?
I'm still waiting to have a streaker at a national convention.
See, they like my idea.
I mean, we had Weeks as a stripper. Why can't we have a streaker?
Oh my god. I so want to bring a skunk now to 2022.
No, the minute they propose that, someone will yank the fire alarm.
Oh my god. Oh, that would be fantastic. I know Alicia and Richard were on stage when here was Alicia with that old laptop. She was white knuckling it. She was like, oh my god, this isn't happening.
How do you put this in minutes? Yeah.
I was watching Alicia. She was so
what? Yeah, oh god, just correct.
Yeah, she was white.
How do you put that in minutes?
Yeah, she was white knuckling it, man.
Yeah, well, JJ's right. You could move to postpone that indefinitely.
Oh.
But even better for that one is objection to consideration of the question, because that is so malodorous.
Malodorous, I love that word.
It should be taken outside, dug into a hole, drop the skunk on top of it, and bury it all, and then set it on fire.
But now, this is going to entertain me. Like, at convention, I'm going to say to you, is it time to release the skunk? All right. So now,
well, I can always splash this up when it pops up.
Yep. Oh, if we should have look, placards are so libertarian. We could have that just completely shitty.